All right, let's jump into this week's deep dive. We're calling this one Revolution from the Top. And just from that title alone, I think we can guess this is going to be interesting.
Definitely eye-catching.
Yeah, a little ominous, maybe.
Yeah.
So our source this week is an article with that title, Revolution from the Top, and it's got this subtitle, The System Implodes, in parenthesis.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, right. And it's by a self-described, get this, right-wing traditionalist.
Yeah.
So we're definitely in for some strong opinions today.
Looking forward to unpacking those.
Yeah, me too. I think this will be right up your alley. I know you're interested in getting the full picture of the political landscape, no matter how out there some of these views might seem.
Absolutely. Got to understand where everyone's coming from, right?
Exactly. So our right-wing traditionalists this week, they're actually not new to the whole Trump phenomenon. Back in 2015, they were totally on board with the whole populist wave, supporting Trump's first presidential run and all that. But here's where it gets interesting. Their take on Trump now is something else entirely.
Oh, how so?
They're calling him a sovereign now.
Okay, that's a loaded term for sure.
Right.
What are they getting at with that?
Right. It's like they're saying he's gone beyond just regular politics.
Yeah, like he's above it all now.
Exactly. And they even point to that, that near assassination attempt.
Oh, right. I'd almost forgotten about that.
Yeah, so they're pointing to that as this turning point.
Wow. Like it somehow legitimized him even more in their eyes.
Yeah, like it elevated him or something. And to make things even more interesting, they're bringing Julia Savola into this.
Evola. Wow. Okay, so we're going full deep cuts here.
Right. For those who don't know, Evola was this Italian philosopher, very much into traditionalism, like hardcore traditionalism, and definitely not a fan of equality.
Yeah, Evola's not exactly known for his nuanced takes.
Right, definitely a controversial figure. Yep. But anyway, this author sees some kind of connection between Trump as this sovereign and Evola's whole deal. What do you make of that?
Well, it's definitely a deliberate choice to invoke Evola. I mean, it immediately signals a certain kind of worldview. Like we're talking about hierarchy, elitism, a very specific idea of how society should be structured.
Right. Definitely not talking about democracy and equal rights here.
Not even close. And calling Trump a sovereign, I mean, it plays into that whole idea that he's not beholden to the people. He's not a representative in the traditional sense. He's something above that.
It's like they're saying the normal rules don't apply to him anymore.
Exactly. And that's a dangerous road to go down.
For sure. And this all ties into what the author sees as this big shift from populism to patronage.
Interesting. So they're saying it's no longer about appealing to the masses.
It's about consolidating power, rewarding loyalty.
Yeah, like a kind of political favoritism.
Right. And that leads us to the author's next big claim, the implosion of liberalism.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, they don't hold back. They're basically blaming liberalism for everything.
Yeah.
Crime rates. Companies like Boeing struggling.
Boeing, huh?
Yeah.
What's their reasoning there?
I think it's more like they just see any big company struggling and blame it on, liberal policies or whatever.
Ah, okay, so kind of a catch-all.
Yeah, pretty much.
But
But it gets even more specific. They're also going after DEI initiatives.
Diversity, equity, inclusion.
Yep, all of it. They're saying it's all crumbling.
Mm-hmm.
And they point to companies like BlackRock, Microsoft, even Disney, saying they're all scaling back their DEI efforts.
Interesting. I mean, there has been some pushback against certain DEI initiatives, but to say it's all imploding?
Right, it seems a little extreme.
Yeah, I'd say so. We'll have to dig into that a bit more, see if their claims hold water.
Definitely. Got to separate fact from, strong opinions, which is what this deep dive is all about, right?
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
And it's interesting they bring up Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, too. Like, they're key figures in this whole supposed shift.
Yeah.
Especially Musk moving the SpaceX next headquarters to Texas.
Right. They made a big deal about that.
Yeah. They're linking it to California's law about, parental notification for gender identity stuff in schools.
Yeah, I remember that whole debate.
So they're saying Musk is hightailing it out of California to this more conservative haven, aligning himself with Trump and this whole sovereign idea. What do you make of that? Seems like a bit of a stretch.
It's always tricky trying to pin down someone like Elon Musk's motivations, right?
For sure. He always keeps things interesting.
I mean, the author definitely has an agenda here, trying to fit Musk into this whole revolution from the top narrative.
Right, painting him as some kind of Trump loyalist.
Exactly. But let's be real, someone like Musk is playing a different game altogether. I mean, he's running these massive companies, SpaceX, Tesla, X. His decisions impact global markets, technological innovation. It's about way more than just aligning with a particular political figure.
So maybe more about pragmatism than ideology.
Right. Musk's going to do what's best for his companies, his own vision. And if that aligns with certain political figures or ideologies, so be it. But it's not necessarily the driving force.
Makes sense. Speaking of aligning with ideologies, they really go in on J.D. Vance.
Oh, J.D. Vance, Trump's supposed VP pick, right?
The one and only, they're really fixated on his whole blood and soil thing.
Yeah, that's a loaded term for sure. Can we unpack that a bit? What does that even mean in this context?
Right, because it sounds like something out of like a history book.
It kind of is. It's this idea that national identity is deeply tied to a specific place, like your ancestors, your heritage, all connected to this one piece of land.
Okay, so it's about roots, belonging.
Exactly. But it also often comes with this romanticized view of the past, like things were better back then when our people were the only ones here.
So it can easily slide into exclusionary territory.
Exactly. And that's why the author's focus on Vance is so interesting. They're linking Vance's background, his family's deep ties to the Midwest, his focus on deindustrialization, all of that. They're linking it back to this blood and soil idea.
So they see Vance as tapping into this very specific, very nostalgic kind of nationalism.
Right. And they see it as evidence of this broader shift within the Republican Party towards a more, well, for lack of a better term, a more exclusive vision of America.
Which is ironic, considering they also point out that Vance's wife is Hindu.
Yeah, that's where their whole argument gets a little messy, doesn't it? It's
Right.
like they're trying to reconcile this idea of a very specific, very homogenous national identity with the realities of a globalized world. And Vance, with his personal background, embodies that tension.
It definitely complicates their narrative.
Yeah, for sure. And it highlights the limits of trying to fit complex figures and evolving political dynamics into these neat little boxes.
It's never that simple, is it?
Nope, not even close.
And this all feeds into their claims about how Trump as this sovereign operates. They're saying he's above traditional politics, doesn't need strategies or plans.
So, no more dog whistles, no more playing the political game.
Exactly. They even dismiss concerns about Trump abandoning Project 2025.
Project 2025. Refresh my memory on that one.
Right, because it's not exactly a household name.
Yeah.
Basically, it's this plan, this blueprint that's been floating around conservative circles. The goal is to put conservative loyalists in key positions within government agencies.
Ah, okay, so stacking the deck, so to speak.
Exactly. Influence policy, steer the country towards their agenda. Long game stuff.
Right, a slow and steady takeover.
But our author is saying Project 2025 doesn't even matter anymore.
Because Trump's transcendence renders it obsolete.
Exactly. They're saying Trump as sovereign operates on a whole other level. He doesn't need these structured plans, these little schemes. His power comes from somewhere else entirely.
So it's all vibes now, just pure charisma and willpower.
Basically, they're saying he's so in tune with the people, so divinely appointed or something that he doesn't need these mundane political tools.
That's a lot to unpack. I mean, on the one hand, you could argue that it shows a certain level of naivete on the author's part.
Naivete or maybe just really, really wanting to believe.
Right, exactly that. But on the other hand, it's also pretty scary when you think about it.
How so?
Because if you truly believe that your leader is above the law, above accountability, above any kind of checks and balances.
Then what's stopping them from doing whatever they want?
Exactly. And that's a very slippery slope. And let's not forget, Project 2025, whether Trump personally follows every detail or not, represents a very real movement, a very deliberate effort to reshape American politics. And that's something we should all be paying attention to, regardless of who's in the White House.
And get this, they actually quote Trump talking about being a dictator, like straight up using that word.
Oh boy, here we go.
Right. And they're not like condemning it. They're framing it as a good thing.
Like he's a man of action, not afraid to break a few eggs to make an omelet.
Exactly. It's wild. They're basically saying, yeah, he might have to bend the rules a bit, maybe even rule with an iron fist for a while.
Yeah.
It's all for the greater good, you know.
Yeah, that's a dangerous line of thinking, to put it mildly. History's full of examples of strongmen who promise to fix everything, and it usually doesn't end well for anyone except maybe their inner circle.
Right, and the author keeps hammering home this idea that this revolution, this return to order, it's not about everyone. It's about a very specific group of people reclaiming what they believe is rightfully theirs.
So less about liberty and justice for all and more about power and privilege for a select few.
Pretty much. Which makes you wonder, who exactly are they talking about? Who benefits from this so-called revolution?
It's a question worth asking, right? Because
Yeah.
when you dig beneath the surface of all this talk about tradition and sovereignty and restoring order, it often boils down to power. Who has it, who wants it, and who gets left out in the cold.
Exactly. It's like they're trying to turn back the clock to a time when, certain people were in charge. And let's be real, that wasn't a great time for a lot of people.
Definitely not a time we should be romanticizing, that's for sure. But that's the thing about nostalgia, isn't it? It can be a powerful drug, especially in times of uncertainty and anxiety.
And they're definitely playing on those anxieties.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you can't build a just and equitable society by excluding people, by silencing dissent. It just doesn't work that way.
Nope. It just creates more division, more resentment, more problems down the line. And that's what's so concerning about this whole revolution from the top idea. It's ultimately a recipe for instability, not progress.
It's like they're so focused on winning, on getting their way, that they're not thinking about the long-term consequences.
It's a common blind spot, unfortunately. But that's why we have these conversations, right? To challenge these ideas, to think critically about the choices we make. Because the future isn't predetermined. It's something we create through our actions, our beliefs, our willingness to engage with different perspectives, even the ones that make us uncomfortable.
Well said.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good place to leave it for today. We've covered a lot of ground, delved into some pretty intense stuff.
To say the least.
But as always, we appreciate you listening, engaging with these complex topics. Because at the end of the day, knowledge is power. And the more we understand these different viewpoints, these competing narratives, the better equipped we are to navigate the challenges ahead. So until next time, keep asking those tough questions. Keep those critical thinking caps on. And remember, the future is not set in stone. It's up to us to create the world we want to live in.